Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. This is the Envision Speakers Series. I am here with Dave Buck, and Dave has chosen to join me in conversation because we want to talk about purpose. Now, if you know me, and many of you do, I talk about purpose a lot. Actually, I wrote a book, Walking the Path of Leader's Journey, that talks specifically about finding your purpose. But more than that, you also hear me talk about the fact that I've had two suicide attempts. So yes, I've attempted suicide twice in the past 10 years, and this being 2023. I've also had a major heart attack. And so every day that I wake up, I am grateful for the fact that I can breathe. And so with every conversation that I have, it's intentional and purposeful. Dave, thank you for joining me in this conversation. Before we dive in, please tell our audience who you are and why you want to be here.
Well, it's an honor to be here first and foremost. So thanks, Keith. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to get to know you. You and I have gotten to know each other virtually, primarily through the LinkedIn world. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to be associated with you and see the content that you put out, which is when you invited me on here, I was excited because I've benefited so much from what you've put out. And a little bit about me. I actually have been on a personal journey somewhat myself the last couple years. I have been in corporate world for most of my career in business development. You can call it sales. That's the fancy word for sales. And I have always been one, started when I was a teenager, where my mom pushed me to save for the future, been saving for the future. And a couple years ago, my wife and I were talking to our financial advisors, and she asked the question, well, what if Dave retired tomorrow? And they were like, well, you guys can eat some beans and rice for a long time, but it's doable. It's doable.
Is it,
And
is that was the answer?
yeah, that was, yeah,
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
It's kind of like be very, very tight and everything. And so we, that was a game changer for me. That was something that was like, I had not thought about life after this time of savings and stuff like that. And so that when I went on a personal journey, I have my business, it's called Kairos Management Solutions. I was primarily at the time helping people, and still do, with their time management and productivity through a series of tools and systems that I developed. Well, I took those learnings and went on a lifestyle journey for me to say, okay, what would I do if I had this extra time?
Mm.
And it was really interesting to me, eye-opening, and something that I got so passionate about that I ended up saying, I think there's others that may be in the same boat as I am. You can see the gray hairs here. And so I was like, I started asking around, people like, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do if I stop working. And
Was that
so
a
that
real question that you,
I posed to a lot of people, tell me what you're going to do if your job went away today.
wow.
What do you do? And people scratch their heads and they're just kind of like, I don't know. And so I felt I had something there. And so that's what I created, what I call the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program earlier this year. And I've been working on that with people. And it's predominantly really to help people establish a lifestyle strategy that's flexible and adaptable, but that brings them purpose. Going back to your key word of purpose, because so many people, when you take career away or work, they just don't know what their life is like.
So it immediately begs the question, what did you think when you left corporate and you were making this transition yourself? Where did you find yourself and where was your purpose? Because you remove the title, you remove the responsibilities, you remove your, everything that is associated with climbing the corporate ladder. It's a different world on the other side of it.
Totally,
Yeah. So
totally.
how does, first let's ask Dave, how did you figure out what your purpose was? I mean, I know we evolve as people, but then let's broaden that spectrum, but I need to hear from you first.
Sure. So from a business standpoint, the the idea was I had my wife and I were talking. I had made the determination that I wanted to transition out of traditional quote corporate life, but I didn't know what to do. And it's funny, this is where the benefit of having a spouse, she's like, well, you are just so anal about managing your time. She said, you probably should do something in that particular vein and area. And she's true. I love the concept of time, time management, how we use our time and all that. So that birthed the company into, so that helped from a career standpoint that shifted what my purpose was as a salesperson is to drive as much positive revenue to the company I was working for, to the purpose of helping people be more productive in their lives. And obviously want to try to make a living off of that. But first and foremost, if I don't help people be more productive in their lives by just generally trying to be there, then I don't get the residual benefits of that income because I don't bring them any value. So that became so my business purpose in life is to replaced what I was doing for a company to providing time optimized opportunities for individuals.
So
And then, yep.
earlier in the call, you said that you thought that, when you talked with people, they didn't have an answer to what happens if, this goes away. Um, Not looking at the data and the data research, but many people have that unknown, they don't plan for it. We tend to think, at least here in America, and I'm gonna live and I'm gonna work and I'm gonna work most of my life. But now, gosh, we're living well past what's considered retirement age here.
Mhm.
What is it, 62, 65 here in America? Um,
Traditionally 65,
yeah,
between 62 and 67, depending on how you want to do it. But yeah, 65 is a good round number.
the data suggests 20 years later, we got 20 more years of life. Wow, what do you do with that? What are people then, when you approach them, how do you help them rethink about those 20 years?
Well, it first starts with a hard question about longevity.
Oh,
And I challenge them to say, tell me how long you think you're going to live. And
that's a scary
that's an
question.
eye-opening. It is a
Yeah.
scary question. And as a matter of fact, going back to LinkedIn, I asked that as a poll question, probably 2 years ago, to say, tell me how long you think you're going to live. And I just gave some decades. I had people wanting me kicked off the platform, said I was disgusting and stuff like that. And it wasn't meant to be morbid. I look at it, it's more meant about opportunity. And to your point, longevity, we are entering potentially an age where longevity is going to exponentially go up because of technology. And a lot of people are understanding to take care of themselves. So that 20 years can quickly become 30, so that it could be conceivably for some of us alive today that we'll spend, if we wanted to, a third of our life in retirement or post career, if you choose to. And that in and of itself can be a very, very scary proposition for people because it's kind of like, number one, do you want to spend 30 years not working? That's something you have to walk through. But as I talk with people, the longevity conversation becomes pretty scary.
Yeah.
But we unpack it from the standpoint to say, okay, look at it now to say you are 57 years old. That's the average person that I kind of work with in that. And you think you're going to live till you're in your early 90s.
Wow.
That's a gap. Then you got to figure out what you're going to do in that time frame. And you can either look at it as melancholy, or I choose and I push my clients to say, if you can do that, what a great opportunity to do some really cool and amazing things in life.
So when I'm hearing you, you and you run LinkedIn Live audio events, I
Mhm.
think weekly.
Yes,
I've attended some of them. Um, Disclaimer, you are not a financial advisor.
correct.
Uh,
Thank you.
okay, so you're not a financial advisor, and so you're not telling people this is how you're stacking up your monies, and this is how you. It's not
Mhm.
your space. Your space is to help people rethink what they're going to do with their time, basically. And if we go back to the question of purpose, you've got to fill in that time with something. Now, I've heard you talk about people who retire and then, all they're doing is hitting the golf ball, or they're retiring and they're watching sports, that they've, and I'm kind of more thinking of the men and the women, but whatever gender you are, you're doing it and you figure that I've earned this. I've earned my time down. But then after a while, it's like the mind kicks in. Is this all there is? How do you help people reframe and think about purpose in a new way?
So, first of all, great analogies and great points for people who head into retirement. They become a one note wonder. Golf is an example, uh, a hobby that they've done, but not as much fulfilling. So, I start, like you had said, with reframing what I call a life purpose statement for them. So, and it can happen, anyone can do this at any age, by the way. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be close to retirement. And so the first thing that I ask people to do is to sit back and write a dream list,
Ooh,
just a list of anything and
I'm looking
everything.
for
Is
paper.
there you go.
What would
Of
that
the
what would be on that? What do you mean a dream list? Like
so
I'm familiar with a bucket. I'm now using the term bucket list because of
yes,
my
because I
situation, but
yes, I
I
hear you.
like the idea of a dream list. It sounds so much
Yeah.
better.
So a dream list and a bucket list are similar. Bucket lists are usually aspirations that you think about that are can be crazy, wild, anything goes. Um, and a dream list it crosses over a lot, but a dream list is really something that is a longer lasting. Like I dream to be able to help people. I dream to help 1 million people manage their time. Something you have a great, I think, dream statement about what you're trying to accomplish with your goal of the Appalachian Trail and raising awareness through that work. That's a great part. That's something that I think is a great dream. Now, that can be a bucket list, a goal. It can be very tangible. You sit there and just lay out the things that you dream about. It's like you're leaning back, just thinking, oh, that sounds cool. I'd like to do that. And you list out those dreams. And after you're done with your dreams, and this is probably where the bucket list comes in, is you say, what is really realistic about those dreams? Are they not or not? And again, it's okay to have unrealistic dreams because it gets your mind thinking beyond the tactics of my day.
Hmm.
And so that's step one to me is think about those dreams. But then step two is what happens to your life if one or more of those dreams come true? How different is your life today versus tomorrow when you fulfill that dream? Because then that gets you to thinking, can this be a reality to what happens? And so I love this idea. Full disclosure, I daydream all the time. I think of all kinds of wild and crazy things I'm never going to do, but have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, when you talk to people, how does that change? Like, when do you see, and because you said, even if it's not even possible, we think about, wow, maybe I'll write a book, or wow, maybe I'll take a trip, or wow, maybe I'll, fill in the blank. What do you see in their faces when you start approaching the conversation in this manner? What do you see change?
At first, it's hard because they look at you and say, I just I'm getting up at 8 o'clock. I'm working till 6. I'm doing, and then once they stop and start to, it's almost like it starts slow, and then the floodgates open, and then they start thinking of all kinds of really neat and cool stuff. And of course, if you have a spouse, a partner, or significant other, I almost demand that they're part of the process, because the ideas that flow back and forth, or the how many times you hear, you wanted to do that? Really? Oh, wow, I never knew that. So it starts those flowing. So it starts out slow and then builds steam over time.
So please, can you share? You don't have to share names, but what have people said that once you allowed them to fantasize, think about, even propose, what were some of the things that people have told you? That
So I'm
their
going to
dream
give you
list.
I'm going to give you one of mine, if you don't
Okay.
mind, personally, because my wife and I are starting to put some scale around that. I want to hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim.
Wow.
And
I want to
it's
hike the Appalachian Trail.
right now, mine is a lot easier than your 2,000 miles. Um, but that is one of those items that's on my bucket list. It's something I dream about, because I just think the Grand Canyon, I've been there twice. It's this majestically beautiful place. And so you start at one rim, you cross the Colorado River, and you go to the other rim.
Wow.
That has been playing out for the last 4 or 5 years for me as a dream, or something that I want to do, because I think there's so much more I can get out of it, that I can also learn and share with others. The experience, the idea I want to do is the experience is to be able to share with others and my clients. This is something big that I did. And so while yes, it's selfish, it's also part of what I think is my life purpose, is to be able to share experiences that I've
Yeah.
done to help others to say, think of what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of part of my campaign to, raise $1 million, raise awareness around suicide prevention and really eradicate it. Because I think with the right conversations at the right time, we could actually make real change. But I always say, given my story, 2 suicide attempts and a heart attack, this old man, me, wants to hike the Appalachian Trail. And so I could
I
definitely,
love
I,
that.
I could
I love
definitely
it.
core, sync with that. What is possible? So that's your story. What about some of the people that you've talked to? What are some
So
of those stories?
some of the others that people end up doing is it's a lot of going back to their past and wishing to fulfill something that they hadn't done before. It would be reconciling with a family member that maybe that they had, that relationship was broken. Go back to and retrace their family roots. There's a lot of people that are kind of like, I want to go back and look at that and address that. When people get stuck, one of the things that I encourage them to do, because I want to do, my mom did, my wife's grandfather did, is to write your life story.
Oh,
But you don't have to do it at one sitting, do it a lot. So that's another thing. People are like, I need to go back, look at my family history to write the family history's story, the life story for future generations. Then I get things like, I want to learn to fly. I want to learn how to fly an airplane, not have done that before. I want to visit every continent in the world. You get that particular areas. People who I want to be traveling and doing adventure 6 months out of the year versus, and then do a base of operations, it runs the gambit. It runs from everywhere. And I just, it feeds off of me because it gets me excited when their juices start flowing.
so all of this is designed to help people think about how they're going to spend their time. How does this then, in your opinion, correlate back to their purpose in life? Now, some of the things you could easily acknowledge, um, they can re-engage in understanding where their family came from, their heritage, and write that that story, as you said. But for many people, you know, it's good to have a dream list. And yeah, I want to learn to fly. I want to, hike the AT or whatever that looks like. But it's not necessarily, I don't say that's my purpose. My purpose isn't to hike the AT. For me, my purpose would be I do want to have a million conversations with people because I value that conversation. Every conversation,
Yep.
including this one, is important in some way. There's value to be heard. There's value to be shared. With the people that you talk to, how do you link that action with purpose?
So once they do and get a good idea of what their dreams in life are, then the second component to that is, what are their core values? What are the areas that they are so important to them, the things that they're not going to compromise on? And I intentionally shift them from dreams to core values, because then that says to you, that starts to craft, are the actions I'm going to take, do they align with my core values? And so having those laid out, and of course, you know, core values can be religious principles, but they can also be other elements that are just important to you. So I say think broadly, but what are the things to you that are the non-negotiables that you will or will not do? What are your ethics and what are your core values? So when you shift to that, then you then kind of peek back to your dreams and say, do any of those violate my core values? Do any of those dreams or aspirations that I do enhance my core values? Am I going to be challenged by those as it relates to my core values? So that starts to then bring kind of a circle around things that says dreams and then my core values.
So when you start having those conversations, do you find that some of those dreams go away, or uh, maybe they get altered in some way? Because now you're asking somebody to align actions with principle.
Yep.
Because personally, and I teach that in my leadership impact course, when we don't align ourselves and we're out of whack, people recognize that there's something not quite right. It interrupts our how we build trust. It interrupts how we act on the things around us. It even interrupts how we feel emotionally. What are the outcomes of now linking actions with your values?
People then reprioritize their dreams.
Okay.
They kind of say, okay, the idea of maybe wanting to cruise 6 months out of the year is great, but when I kind of think how what's in my core values, maybe that needs to be a lower level priority, and writing the family history needs to be a higher level priority because that's a legacy thing that I can get behind. So it helps them reprioritize maybe those dreams, and maybe then even engage in some additional things they may have not considered dreams, but nice to do, that says, well, gosh, wow, if I want to align things to my core values, maybe I need to bring in other activities that maybe aren't as exciting, but actually tie back to my core values.
Earlier, you talked about you feel it's necessary to bring in the spouse or the partner or whoever else is engaged with the individual who's about to transition into retirement. Can you talk to me about that a bit more? What is the real purpose and value of having that conversation with somebody who you expect to spend a lot of time with now because you're not working so much?
So one of the things I love working with couples, because I have what these called oh heck moments, and it's another word, but it's oh heck moments.
All good.
And usually someone declares a statement or something. And so, for example, a couple I was working with, the husband declared he's not going to retire until he's 75.
Oh my.
And the wife stopped, probably had whiplash, turning to her husband and said, "Oh, heck no, that's not happening." And so it is, even my wife and I, who talk about this a lot. I mean, we every morning we walk 3 to 4 miles, and we just, that's our time together. It's our time to talk. We still surprise each other with things that we want to do. And so having the couples in there, number one, you get to learn the different dreams and aspirations of each other. You get to see what are the common ones we should do together, and what are the ones that we're going to pursue on our own.
Right.
But you also, when you understand the core values, and long couples married a long time, I don't see any surprises there about core values. They've lived with each other. But as you then try to align those, it can become a very satisfying discussion, because they're, why do you feel that way? Tell me why. And a lot of times, if I've done my job, they're asking the questions of each other while I sit back and monitor.
So that, oh heck no statement that the spouse, do you get that a lot, or is that
I
more
do.
like you do?
No, I
Yeah.
do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And in some
So
cases, it's something small, but
yeah.
in other cases, it's like, wait a minute. No, you're retiring 10 years sooner than you think you are.
So it sounds like if you hear that a lot, people are not really thinking about that future element of their life. It's really, it's like, yeah, it's going to happen. And when it happens, there's like this magic wand that something is going to be special about it. But you're telling me exact opposite. You're telling me that if I don't really intentionally think about this, plan it, have conversations with people, it's really not going to turn out the way I dream it should. Yes?
Yes. I try to encourage people, why figure it out when you're in it? Figure it out beforehand.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we all know millions of people are retired already in the United States. Millions of people figure it out. But there are also millions of people living in the shadows who are, who, for example, women outlive men on average 5 years, according to the CDC, but it's probably bigger than that. And so, in many cases, a widow gets into huge social isolation situations because everything was defined around their partner, their spouse, social engagements, and then they find when they lose their spouse or husband, it's, life just is so different that they become socially isolated.
Wow.
And I live in a 55 plus community. I'm in a condominium, and two people downstairs and over, um, they are socially isolated widows.
Oh,
And it breaks my heart, because they just don't have a plan. We barely see them. When you try to engage, they're very malicious. And so I look at them as an example to say, what do I have to do to not be in that situation? And particularly someone who's a high introvert, I really recognize my default is I can be alone, but that's not healthy.
so can we talk about that just a little bit?
Sure.
So not so because now we're widening the circle here. So first it's about the individual and the individual's transition purposefully into their next
Mhm.
stage. You then said, well, we need to, whoever's, intimately involved, whatever that, relationship is, spouse, partner, they have to become part of that conversation. And now you're telling
Mhm.
me there's more people that should be part of, maybe not the essence of the conversation, but things to be thinking about your social circle, because professionally, personally, they're very different. And then
Very.
when you lose that professional circle, which we're very comfortable in, all you have left is that personal circle, which typically, this is just an assumption, may be smaller than the professional circle.
It's not an assumption, so you are 100% correct
Okay.
that our social life, when we're in career, when we transition into retirement, the data indicates we will lose probably over half of our social network immediately.
Wow.
And you have to think about it, you know, what's the commonality when you're in a career? I've had some amazing close relationships, and I still have some close relationships with people I worked with and for. But I had some very, very close friendships that I don't keep up with those people, and it's not my fault. It's not their fault. It's because the most common thing that drew you together was the occupation you both chose.
Yeah.
And when that ends, and say one stays and the other leaves, the person that leaves, their life, the other person still has all the mechanics of work that keep them busy. The other person, the only thing that they have is the memory back to where they worked. So what happens is that your social network just gets in half. And that's where I work with clients to say, you need to be investing in your social network now into those people who are important to you. So you pour out yourself into them so that they're there for you when your social network continues to shrink, because it will. As we get older, our network shrinks. And I talked to a 95-year-old earlier this year. I talked to a 95-year-old woman. Faye is amazing. She gardens every day. She cooks pies for everybody in her assisted living facility. But she said the area that got her choked up is, she says, I have outlived all my children. I have outlived all my friends. And she
Wow.
said, so it's a constant struggle for me to make new friends because it hurts because I lose them, but I know I need them.
You're gonna make me that's gonna make me cry, man. That's not fair. But it's so important to recognize that, you know, the need for that, because when we do not have that, it does impact physically, spiritually, emotionally. We need to talk. We need to interact. We need to do things. So where do people find you? Where do you do your thing? So I know you're on LinkedIn, because
Mhm.
you do this Thursday afternoon, this noon thing. Where do people find you so that they say, Dave, I need your help?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So you can find me at Infinity Lifestyle Design. So that's all one word, .com. And there's two routes that I serve people in. Either if you're in your career, I'll serve you and try to help you manage your productivity and time management in a career life. And then also if you're getting closer towards uh, where you want to say, I want more flexibility in my life, I'm going to retire, I don't want to work, then I'll help craft that post-career lifestyle strategy for you. In each way, my goal is, and my personal mission statement is, to use my time for the best of my ability to help others use their time for the time that God has given us. And so the idea is, in all those, I want to help people have more flexibility in their life, regardless of their age.
Anything else that is going on? Are you doing any like specific workshops, or what's going on? This is the close of 2023. What is
Crazy,
2020,
right?
2020? Yeah, right. What does
Yes.
2020, 24, and 2025 look like for you?
So actually, as of yesterday, I have written a book called The Time Optimized Life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. As a fellow author, I understand the dynamics to get there. And that is actually available for pre-order on Amazon. So it's not officially launch date until next year. And that's, again, it's called The Time Optimized Life. And that takes one of the tools that I use called the time management analysis in my business. That became the outline for the book. So I collected hundreds of assessments that people took, and I used that data to try to craft what I think will help people develop not managing their time, but optimizing their time. So I had a lot of fun writing that. So that's out there. And then really for me, I am also trying, I do have one-on-one or one-on couples consultations, team consultations, and all that, and into a deep consultation program if that interests you. But it's a step process that I force people to go through because I want to make sure that they know and they trust me, because they're going to have to share with me some personal aspects and elements with their life in order for me to help them. So trust is important. So just if you go to infinitylifestyledesign.com, you'll find what I do and how I do it. And if I can be of service, I'd love to be of service for you.
So of course, all that will be in the description. One last question, and this is always the important question on the Envision Speakers Series. Well, actually, I got to ask you because you have to give something now, even though you've given us, gosh, such value in this conversation. But today, for those who are watching, those who are listening, give them something to do today, excuse me, today, that will change their thinking around purpose into transition.
I would encourage, find it, whether it's your spouse, partner, significant other, close friend, family member, someone that you trust. And if you are thinking, what is my purpose in life? Ask that person to say, what do you think my purpose in life should be? Because for me, I wouldn't have been able, I would have figured it out eventually. But the fact that my wife was the one who said, you're anal about your time,
I can't
it
believe she
came,
said that.
yeah, it's so funny. And she's a pastor too. So. And, but when she said that, that helped open my own personal floodgates. So if you're stuck on, and to it really to say to someone to craft a personal life purpose statement can be seem very, very daunting. The best place to start is with the people you know, you love, and you trust, because they're going to say, you are so good at this, or this is a great place for you to go. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
Dave Buck, I love it. Thank you for joining me in conversation today on the Envision Speakers Series. For those of you who are watching and listening, I'll see you next time. Take care.